Good evening, everybody. Welcome to iBusiness School. My name is Karen Hobbs, and I represent the International Executive Programs Department at IE's Executive Education Division. And together with 360 Degree Branding, we're pleased to have you join us in tonight's event, Executive Branding, una revolución en la gestión de la carrera y el desarrollo del talento. We're pleased to have you join us, and pleased as well to have the executives that are participating in this roundtable discussion. And I'll have the pleasure of introducing them to you in just a minute, but before I do, I'd like to run you through the event agenda. First, and after my brief introduction, Professor Manuel Alonso Coto will give way to Mr. William Arruda's presentation, after which he'll be invited to participate in a Q&A session where questions will be able to be posted in both English and Spanish. Afterwards, you'll be invited to join us in a networking cocktail organized in the hall just outside the Aula Magna. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the executives that are participating in today's discussion. Professor Manuel Alonso Coto is marketing professor here at IE Business School, an expert in digital marketing, and as such is academic director of our Programa Superior in Publicidad Digital and our Programa Avanzado in Mobile Marketing. He's also author of various books on the subject, including Venta a Distancia 2.0, El Plan de Marketing Digital, and Marketing 2.0, among others. Our guest speaker for this evening, Mr. William Arruda, is personal branding guru and is recognized as one of the principal figures in the sphere of professional development. He's also co-author of the book Career Distinction, Stand Out by Building Your Own Brand, and consultant to major Fortune 500 firms such as BMW, British Telecom, GE, IBM, Gucci, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, Disney, among others. He is also regularly cited in publications such as Time Magazine's, Fortune, The Wall Street Journal, among others. Ms. Joan Shawcross, who will be moderating the roundtable discussion, is founder of 360 Degree Branding, the only company licensed in Spain to deliver the acclaimed Reach 1-2-3 Success, trademarked professional branding process created by Mr. William Arruda to identify clients' unique promise of value. Joan is also Reach Master, personal branding strategist, and Reach certified keynote speaker. I now leave you with Professor Manuel Alonso Coto.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thanks for being here. Okay, we're all here to listen to William, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. Okay, I'm gonna try to throw some light over using social media and digital marketing in general to try to promote our self-brand. So I'll start with a brief definition of what's self-branding. According to Jeff Bezos, your rank is what people say about you when you're not in the room. But answer William will explain more than that to us later on. Okay, what's the personal branding? If we go to Wikipedia, personal branding is the process whereby people and their careers are marked as brands. Okay, so in order to try to succeed in nowadays world, we need to be able to promote our self-brand. It was not that easy years ago, but now using social media, we only have to focus on the skin. What do I do? Who do I do it for, and how am I unique, and trying to transmit that over the various digital channels that we have. I'm not going to play this video because I don't want to make this very longer, but the presentation is going to be available to you guys, so we are all aware that there's social media revolution going on, and this 2 minutes long video illustrates it perfectly. The only thing is that from the recruiting standpoint, companies have very clear that they have to fish where fish are. And the fish are nowadays in social media. Everyone looking for a job opportunity as social media, trying to advertise themselves as brands. And we're going to try to go very quickly through it. True fact is that 71.3% of Spanish internet users are into social networking nowadays. So it's a clear opportunity for those companies trying to recruit to be there in the social media, and we're going to see soon that they are already doing this. So it's absolutely important for us executives to try to use social media in order to advertise ourselves as our own brands. Okay, Spain is the second country in Europe with a higher percentage of people registering social networks, and they are spending like 5.3 hours per month in user. I don't know if you guys have ever Googled yourself, okay? Googling yourself is an absolute experience, okay? You see how well you're positioned according to which keywords you are positioned, or you may find that you do not exist according to the keywords that are of your interest and that would be interesting to be associated to. In order to try to prove how important Googling yourself is, or trying to play around Google in order to try for job opportunities, we're gonna have a look at this small video. It was not about investment, was it? $6 per obtaining a good work in Young and Rubicam, New York. Okay, there are new ways of trying to promote ourselves as brands and to try to impact people that who could be recruiting us. So this is your new business card. We have to be very present in Google. We have to be very well positioned in Google according to the keywords of our interest. But is this something brand new and something that's not, it's just a trend, or is something that's already consolidated that we can use on a regular basis? Let's have a look at this, because all this means that social media recruiting has already arrived. I've also brought another video, but since due to train constrictions, I'm going to leave you guys to review it. Let's jump to kind of figures that can prove that social media recruiting is already here. Okay, 45% of Spanish companies are already using social media for recruiting, and 29% of them are using Facebook, 26% of them are using LinkedIn, 21% are using Twitter, 11% are using blogs, and 7% are using MySpace. 18% of companies said they found relevant information over social media conducive to hiring candidates, but more surprisingly, 35% of them use this information that they found about possible candidates over social media in order to decide not to hire them. So it's not only important what the positive things that may appear there about us, but also try to manage our reputation somehow to avoid negative comments or negative perceptions about our brand. Are companies really into social media recruiting? Have a look at this, okay? This is data from the States, not from Spain, where things are much more advanced, as probably William's going to tell us later, okay? 68% of companies in the States are already using social media recruiting, and we see that they are using all the most important social networks, but mainly Facebook, okay? We see here the reasons for social media recruiting, and one of the main reasons, of course, is low cost. Okay, we're in times of crisis, and using all this media is much cheaper than hiring a headhunter, for sure. Level of satisfaction with social media recruiting in the States is also very high, 66%. So we see that, well, these figures multiplied by 3 the level of impact that we were seeing in Spain earlier in this presentation. So, well, the trend is clear. Spanish companies are going to get more and more into this, into social media recruiting. Okay, here we see the different channels, also including traditional ones that are used in the States for candidates research, and we see that Google masters the list. Okay, so appearing well positioned in Google, as we were saying before, is absolutely essential. Sorry for that, there's a bit cut in the graphic. Okay, but we see that, well, all kind of candidates, not only youngsters, but, senior executives are also being recruited over social media. And, well, we see that the level of satisfaction, once again, is quite high when recruiting over social media. So some examples, for instance, here at IE, we're using social media for recruiting in the different departments, and we're using, for instance, Tweet Job Search, but this would be a very quick example in Spain, but in the States, for instance, probably the most typical example is Zappos. I don't know if you're familiar with Zappos. They are the main vendor of shoes worldwide, and they only sell shoes online, and they only recruit through Twitter. Okay, if you're willing to work for Zappos, the only possibility for you guys is to contact them via Twitter, and we'll start tweeting with the people working there and trying to impact them. So perfect example of how the social media recruiting is having a deep impact on the States. You see here that the culture book of Zappos is all about what they call the culture of wowing, impacting the potential customers through the high standards of service, and for doing so, it's very important that their corporative culture is very strong, and that's precisely what they are trying to achieve by doing all the social recruiting via Twitter. Okay, there's a video linked to this slide that I advise you to see to have a look to how these guys in Zappos are doing all their recruiting via social networks. So we have to be prepared for that. Okay, in order to try to position ourselves as potential candidates for a certain job position, it's absolutely necessary that we understand the new rules of the game in order to try to position ourselves properly in this social media. Because, well, it's all about me 2.0, okay? There's 10 levels of intimacy in today's communication. And, well, it's not all about talking like it used to be in the past, but nowadays it's all about tweeting, it's all about contacts via Facebook and the different social networks. Okay, the ecosystem of me is now based on our presence and all the information that they can be gathered about ourselves in the different social media. And we have to try to create social media marketing plan for my brand, for me 2.0 brand. We need to identify what we want to transmit over the different social networks in order to be perceived in a positive way. Of course, the results that appear when they Google us have to be controlled. Okay, if we do not control our online reputation in Google, we're going to be in deep trouble, as we have already checked in the previous slides. So, if, for instance, we do not access and sending a very negative message to people that could be considering the possibility of hiring us. Okay, so we need to master all these tools in order to try to generate content on one side, share that content and organize it in a positive way, in order to try to maximize our impact via SEO, search engine optimization. So we appear on top positions on Google according to keywords based on which we could be recruited. Okay, so these are the 4 F's of relation. Foreign, of course, human resources officers are considering to hiring us at the very first step foreign to us. And, well, we need to try to convert him into a follower so he knows about us and about our skills, to convert them afterwards into kind of fun that would be enjoying to recruit us. Okay, in order to try to organize all this, we should prepare a 7-step plan defining the brand Me 2.0, creating our digital identity, creating the social spaces needed for achieving this object, creating the necessary content that allows us to be perceived as experts in determined fields, and based on that we will have to make our connections grow to create a community of fans of our own brand. Okay, and of course we'll need to nurture this community of brand ambassadors of ourselves that we are creating. Okay, based on that, there's a 10C's model that I'm gonna leave you guys to review, because you're here to listen to William, not to listen to me, so I don't wanna make this very, very long. But it's absolutely essential, and this graphic explains it very well, compiles everything I've been referring to very well. It's absolutely necessary to create a kind of About Me website. You can use this platform, About Me, or any other of the existing ones, that makes all the information about us converse in just one single point that we can promote using search marketing techniques to maximize the possibilities of these human resources officers finding us when Googling our name or other keywords that could be related to the job description corresponding to the job position they are trying to cover. Okay, well, and for doing so, we need to create content, organize that content, share that content, and create a community over all these different social media. The main ones appear highlighted, okay, which would be, of course, Facebook, blogs, YouTube, and Twitter. Okay, this would be the final diagram I want to go through. Okay, we need to plan how we want them to find us in order to make ourselves findable. We need to create a lot of content that could be appearing in ebooks, in podcasts, in blogs, in presentations, in slide sharing, videos in YouTube explaining us different concepts related to our activity and so on. We need to publish all that once we have created this, and well, afterwards we need to promote it using LinkedIn, Facebook, and search engine techniques. And of course, as usual in marketing, some of you guys have been my students in different courses. I recognize several faces in the audience. Okay, you all guys know that I am obsessed with metrics. Okay, so we need to analyze how this is going. We need to identify different KPIs that allow us to see if the creation of our Me 2.0 brand has been successful enough or not over time. So this will be, 2 slides to conclude, William. This will be our personal branding formula. Okay, we have to put passion to all this. That's the key for success in any aspect of life. And once we put this passion to work, we need to produce content. Okay, to divide this content over all the different channels that are gonna create our Me 2.0 brand, and we have to use Google as a multiplying factor. Okay, well, that would be the strategy, but very quickly, what can we do now? Because this is very theoretical and we need to learn all this concept. So I've entitled this final slides, Digital Brand Building Made Easy. We need to identify our influencers that are going to be in social networks. We need to identify which social networks are the most accurate depending on the kind of recruiters that we're trying to impact. Okay, according to that, we need to create a social media marketing plan for our own brand. We see that, well, depending on the kind of people that we need to impact, the social networks will be ones or others. Okay, we have to build our presence with podcasts and all the stuff that I've been mentioning before, and we need to manage our online brand according to these 3 steps. Okay, monitor what's being told about us. In order to do so in a very simple way, we can do it ourselves, yes, by using Google Alerts. Okay, we just need to go to Google Alerts, identify all the different topics that could be related to information that we find relevant about our brand, configure the alert, and follow all the information that appear related to us or related to our fields of interest. Step number 2 would be to set up profiles. And we need to create profiles, well, accordingly to the social demographics of the target we want to impact. Okay, it's recommendable to concentrate everything in just one single point of access, maybe About Me or any other tool of this kind. And it's also very advisable that we buy our own domain. We can use, for instance, this website just to try to see if the domain corresponding to our surname and so on is being free, and if there's also other people with our name similar to us with a presence in social networking. So this no-one tool is something that I advise you to use. Step number 3 would be to engage. Okay? In order to engage, we need to answer these questions. What are you reading? What are you commenting on? What are you blogging? What are you wondering about? What would you like to ask? It's very interesting to create call to actions to invite people to interact with us, especially over Twitter. What are you talking about? What are you rolling your eyes over? That would be the idea. Okay, so some tips for brand building will be these ones, okay? Be dangerous and gracious. Be personable without being too personal. Be yourself consistently. Be kind to yourself and, interact in the precise degree, okay? You don't need to become a social spammer either, trying to, post every day 3 different posts. Now, people could tend to think that you're not working and you're only focusing on this, okay? So find the ideal point of saturation, okay? And that would be everything on my side. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And that's precisely what we need to do. Creating a brand identity over social media. But this would be tactics. Now the real guru, world-renowned guru, William Arruda, is going to explain us how to approach this from a more strategic standpoint. So William, the floor is yours. We're all here to listen to you.
Thank you, Manuel. And thank you for making that work perfectly. Great. Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello. How are you doing tonight? I only have 40 minutes, and I have 4 hours of content, and I didn't remove anything. So we're going to go at really fast speed, but I want to make sure that you have everything you need to know so that you can think about your brand from this moment forward if you're already not doing that. And I'm gonna follow some great things that Manuel was able to kind of hopefully entice you with, and give you maybe some steps before the social media piece about building your brand. Here's our agenda. It's really simple. I want to start out talking about big B branding, because you can't talk about personal branding without us all knowing what a brand is and why it's important. And then we're going to talk about personal branding and why, if you're not already thinking about yourself as a brand, you need to. And lastly, I'm going to take you very specifically through the 3-step process so that you can unearth your brand and start to create a plan to build that brand so that you can increase your success and the success of your team and the success of your company. Now, we're going to focus here on you, not the company that you currently work for, not any other brand. However, and this is something that I've learned, and I've been doing personal branding now for 11 years, and the big concern and the big question that comes up for people is, okay, well, I work in a company and I'm happy in my company and I want to use personal branding to be more successful in my company, but doesn't my brand compete with the corporate brand, and how do I get those brands to work together? And that's a challenge, right? It's one of those, it's cognitive dissonance. We don't know how to handle that. So what I want to do is introduce to you Joanne Shawcross, and she is one of my business partners, and she's based here in Spain, and one of the only people certified in my methodology to the master's level anywhere in the world. She shares the personal brand attribute of international. And so she's going to give you why the personal brand and the corporate brand can coexist. And then after that, I'm going to jump in and give you everything you need to know about your personal brand in 39 minutes. Okay? So
You've got my first slide.
let me get your slides up. And
That's the last one. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I have 5 minutes, so this is going to be very challenging. Time is of the essence. We're going to be talking about leadership and executive branding. As William said, sometimes there's this confusion of how this fits into the corporate branding process. And I'd like to show you in only 5 minutes that they are absolutely inseparable. Personal branding is part of the corporate branding process. But before I say that, I was reading a book a couple of months ago, And I read a phrase, and it just sounded like Spain at this moment in time. And it was written by Stephen Covey, a little tiny book published end of 2011, How to Get Results in Challenging Times. But there's this one particular phrase that really stuck in my mind and reminded me of what I'm feeling and seeing in Spain. I live in Palma de Mallorca, by the way, but obviously with the size of airport, we travel backwards and forwards very easily. They were talking about that in times of very severe economic crisis, it's usually followed almost immediately by a severe psychological crisis. And it's the second psychological crisis that is actually the most dangerous. It's the one that takes longer to get over, and it's the most debilitating. So I'd like you to think about that for the moment, because we're going through an economic crisis, everyone knows that, but the big danger in Spain is people stop believing. I was just talking to my new friend, Antonio Milan, about this. I believe in Spain. I've lived here for 20-something years. I see people like yourselves, talented, cultured, educated. I believe in Spain. So we need leadership, and this is what William's going to be talking about now, is how executives can have successful careers by developing a strong, powerful, valuable brand, but at the same time, increasing corporate brand value and affecting the teams and creating these brand ambassadors. Sorry. So I just want to demonstrate why there are different types of brands and how they are inextricably linked. You cannot separate them. Everybody knows, I won't try to teach to the experts here about what corporate branding is, but basically, putting simple terms, companies look for markets where they can position themselves, their goods, their services, their products, and become the preferred option. The goal being to get as many clients within that chosen market and retain those clients. Okay? They develop a strategy around that, sometimes very complex strategies with big teams, different departments working on this. But in order to implement those strategies, they need talent. They need to find the right people. And it's not just about what you know. I don't know if you've heard this, that many companies hire people for what they know, and they fire them for who they are. And this is quite often not that they're a bad person, there's just not the fit. There isn't the understanding. There aren't the shared values. The corporate culture just doesn't work for both sides. And that's very expensive and time-consuming to fix. So a lot of companies are now working very hard to build what is called an employer or an employment brand, which again is a communication strategy, trying to position themselves in the chosen markets where they can find this talent that they need for whatever projects or things that they're working on. And the idea is, obviously, to attract this talent and to retain the talent. You don't want the competition taking the talent away from you. We're now at personal branding, and personal branding is a new opportunity for individuals to build their own communication strategy in order to communicate the value they bring to the market. Now, loads of people are talking about personal branding, and it's positioning yourself in Twitter, in Google. For me, it's as simple as this. You have to bring value to the market, and you have to know who will value the value that you bring. And you have to have a very good strategy for communicating that to make sure that you stand out and become the preferred option in a very crowded market. Okay? Once you're in that position within a company, which most of you are, this is where William will tell you, even though you're already employed, it's absolutely vital that you build your brand. You demonstrate your value on behalf of the company and on behalf of yourself. So that's what we'll be talking about in William's presentation. But all of these brands, and by the way, you've got the executive brands, you've got employee brands, you've got team brands. It's the perception and the reputation they have. All of these share these different attributes. They must be authentic. If not, it's a question of time before they find out. You know, customers are not slow at finding out these things. Whoops, one too many. They must be differentiated. Because if not, it's just a question of who's the cheapest. If you're not demonstrated additional value, it's very difficult to be the chosen one and to make those margins. Must be relevant. If you're trying to sell something that's no longer relevant in those target markets, then, you know, you're going to be having a difficult time. So you need to stay ahead, open up new markets, etc. Always stay relevant. Make it compelling, attractive, so that you become the preferred option to these people. And obviously stay consistent. You can't do a good job one day and a bad job the next. All the companies, as you're well aware, most of you, spend a lot of time, money and resources on advertising, logos, brochures, websites, product development. But they tend to forget that the people within the organization are a really important part of their brand. It's the people that give the face to the corporate brand, and it's the people that deliver on the corporate brand promise. Those are the people every day interacting with all the different stakeholders, whether it's the customers, suppliers, etc. So for me, personal branding and the people within the organization are absolutely critical, and you can't get away from it. Last slide, and then my 5 minutes are over. I'm not sure if I've gone over. For me, the optimal corporate brand is a mixture of the personal brand meeting the employer brand. That's to say there's a great communication going on. I have clear what my value proposition is as an individual. I've researched the markets. I've found where I think what I have to offer is most relevant, that I can become an attractive option. And they're recognizing that back because they have clarity on the type of talent they need. So there's good communications like that fusion between what I'm looking for and the talent and what the company actually needs. And then the two work together to successfully and consistently deliver on the corporate brand promise. Because employees can actually sabotage the corporate brand if they're not well-trained, motivated, engaged, and have the information they need. So for me, the optimal corporate brand is a mixture of the three together, and it's about creating brand ambassadors through all your employees. So as leaders and executives, one of your great responsibilities is to make sure that all those personal brands that exist in your organization, because they're there, everybody has a personal brand. It's their reputation, it's their attitude, it's their behavior, it's the perception of others about your employees. So make sure that you're managing, encouraging, communicating with all of those people that every day should be delivering value to the corporate brand promise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. Okay. So, I told you we were going to start by talking about Big B branding, and I want to start with my definition of a brand. A brand is nothing more than a unique promise of value. And as we start to uncover your brand, we're going to determine what's unique, what's the promise that you commit to delivering every day, and what has value to the people who are making decisions about you. Now, what I'd like you to do now is take a look at these logos as they pop up on the screen. They are the logos of the world's strongest brands according to Interbrand and Business Week every year. And what I'd like you to do as you see the logos is to recognize them, right? And there are maybe some words, some feelings, some associations that you have with the companies behind these logos. What makes them strong brands is you're all pretty much thinking the same thing. So I'm going to prove it to you. If I said to you, Volvo, what words come to mind? Safety. Wow. Pretty clear, right? Volvo equals safety. How about Apple?
Innovation.
Innovation, right? When you walk into an Apple store, is it a little bit different from other electronic stores? The other electronic stores have Genius bars. It's not just the product. Everything about Apple is innovative. So what I'd like you to take away from this is as you build your brand, you're going to base it around who you really are, right? If every time a Volvo were in a car accident, it exploded, you're not going to think safety when you think Volvo. So it's not spin, it's not packaging, it's not creating something. It's about what's true and genuine and real. So you're going to have to dig deep into who you are to understand your brand. The second thing I'd like you to take away from this, and it's almost more important, is that strong brands are known for something, not 100 things, right? Apple, innovation. Volvo, safety. Disney, family entertainment, right? So you can't come up with a laundry list of the 70 things that you want to be known for because no one else is going to be able to manage that, right? You need to make it clear for them that unique value that you deliver. So, important distinction before we jump into the process, and that's the distinction between a commodity and a brand. And Manuel referred to this earlier, right? Commodities are things like coffee beans. One bushel of coffee beans is interchangeable with the next. We don't get too excited about them. The market sets the price. But coffee, we're willing to pay a premium, right? We will walk to a Starbucks store for those of us who like Starbucks, and we'll pay $4.50 for our triple tall half-cap ice skim caramel macchiato, and we'll be thrilled to pay, right? That's a brand. It offers a unique experience. Now, not everybody is a fan of Starbucks, and that's okay. As you you build your brand, you're going to find that strong brands often detract as many people as they attract, right? So you have to get comfortable with the fact that not everyone's going to agree with you, but typically people will respect you for what you deliver. All right, so here's why personal branding, when I started personal branding 11 years ago, I want you to know I really didn't have a good business going. Because the concept of personal branding, first of all, people didn't know what it was. There were only 5 of us in the world doing it. And the other 4, by the way, no longer do it because they couldn't wait until personal branding became as big as it's become. But it was really before these incredibly rapid changes that are happening in the world of work, and before companies started to think of their employees as incredible brand assets. And then you really didn't need to worry about your brand, right? The company managed your career a little bit. You probably were fairly secure with that company. The company kind of told you what to do. What's happening today is companies need innovation. Innovation comes from creativity. Creativity comes from diversity. And when we talk about diversity, we talk about it down to the level of the individual. It is your mandate to deliver something that's not available from anyone else inside your company. That's what's going to support innovation, and that's why personal branding has become so big. So when I started, we were doing a lot of what Manuel was talking about, which is how do you find a job using the concept of personal branding? And now 90% of the business I do is inside companies with leaders helping their employees figure out what their brands are and then apply it to the corporate world. So I want to share with you, I have a new book coming out in a month. It's called Ditch, Dare, Do. And I want to share with you as we go through the presentation some ditches, some dares, and some do's. Okay, a ditch is a habit or a mindset that used to work for you. It's not going to work anymore, right? Maybe it got you to where you are, but it's not going to get you to where you're going. Or it's just antiquated because it's connected to the old world of work. You need to be able to get rid of it. Ditches are really important because you need to always be innovating. You're not innovating when you're stuck in some old rut that you were part of. A dare is a risk that you need to take. How many people have heard of Seth Godin? He's a famous marketing guru in the U.S. I knew you would, Manuel. He says not taking risks is risky today, and that's really absolutely true. A do is an action you have to take to manage your career. I know every one of you has a long do list, and you have 9 million meetings that you go to every day, and 500 phone calls, and you have all the people who come to your office and need something, right? You have all that stuff going on, but you probably don't spend 1 minute taking a step back thinking about what do I need to do for my career today. It is your job, and your company knows this, for you to manage your career. Because the more you can manage your career and figure out where you want to go next and build that brand, the more successful you're going to be for them. So really important that you do that. One more important distinction before we jump into the process, and that's the distinction between conformity and consistency. Anyone want to come up with what they think the difference is? The interactive portion of the okay, I'll tell you. Conformity is doing something the exact same way, right? It is telling people this is exactly how you behave in our company and this is what we do. Conformity is critical to all companies. You can't have people doing their expense report any way they want, right? There needs to be a process that has to be followed if you want to get your money at the end of the month for your expenses. So conformity has its place. Consistency, though, is different. The outcome is the same, but the way you get there is different. And consistency is the way, with what Joanne was talking about, individual brands can build the corporate brand. When you know who you are and what makes you incredible, and you can apply that to the mission of the company, you win and the company wins, right? So that's consistency. That brand in the marketplace is consistent, but you're delivering on it in a way that takes advantage of what makes you great. Now, I want to contrast this with, pretty much every day I'm in a different city doing presentations, and one day I was in Chicago, and I checked into a hotel, and I won't tell you the hotel name, and I was waiting in line, and I got to reception, and I gave the woman behind the counter my credit card and my frequent stay card, and I said, I'd like a high floor, please. And she said, "My pleasure!" I thought that was odd too, and so we just kept going, and I said, I think my assistant sent a package, could you check? And she said, "My pleasure!" And so I said, I'm not going to ask any more questions, I'm going to wait for my key, and I'm just going to go to my room and be happy. And when she gave me my key, taped to every workstation was a black and yellow piece of paper that looked exactly like this. That's conformity, right? It feels uncomfortable. It was awful for her. It was uncomfortable for me. Now, if they said, whatever the client wants, find a way that works for you to deliver it, I would have had a great experience. And so would everyone else have had, right? But each person would have been able to deliver it in a way that's authentic to them. So it's really important that you be thinking about consistency. And for those of you who lead teams, right, it's about how to get each member of your team to take their unique gifts and apply them, but still support what your team's objectives are, right? And that's a challenge that you have as a leader. And I think it's an exciting challenge. So a brand is a unique promise of value. Your brand is your unique promise of value. It's unique because it sets you apart from your peers, right? If you think of yourself as your job title, you are replaceable by every person who has that same job title. You really need to think about yourself as that unique value that you deliver. It's a promise because you commit to delivering it, and you do so every single day, and it has value to your target audience. Your target audience is the people who need to know you so that you can reach your goals. And this includes people inside your company and outside your company, regardless of what your role is. Really important. People think personal branding is about being famous. When I first started with personal branding, everyone thought it was about being famous. It's not. It's about being selectively famous. It's about just the people who need to know you, not being able to get away from you. That's the key. So here's our process that we're going to go through, and I'm going to help you start to think about, what is my brand, and how do I get that brand out there, and how do I refine it? We're going to go through 3 steps. Extract, which is unearthing your brand, right? What makes me great? Who am I? What's important to me? Express is all about, okay, now that I know my brand, how do I make sure the people who need to know me know that that's what my brand is, to help me move my career and help me support my company's objectives. And exude, which is the easiest phase, is how do I make sure that everything is reinforcing that brand rather than detracting from it, rather than creating confusion, okay? So we're going to jump into this, but first I want to give you the benefits. Here's the what's in it for me slide, okay? In going through the branding process, and now I have worked with literally hundreds of thousands of people in maybe 50 countries in the world, and this is what we've learned. When you go through the process, number one benefit, incredible self-awareness. Because you have to dig deep into who you are and figure out what your brand is, you learn a lot about yourself. Not something we walk around every day questioning, what's my values? We don't do that. But you take some time to do that. You increase your visibility and presence. All of a sudden, people know who you are, and you have no idea how they know you. You differentiate yourself from everyone else who does what you do. You put yourself in control of your career. You increase your wealth. We've done some studies inside companies of people with the exact same job title, and we found that the people with the stronger brand also just happen to make more money. That's just, we pay more money for a branded coffee than we do for a no-name coffee down the street, right? But here are the ones that I really like, and this is why I do what I do. People get to achieve their goals, right? Because you point your brand at what you want to accomplish, and you do so in a way that's fulfilling. Because you're aligning who you are with what you do and how you do it, right? Does that make sense? Doesn't that make you want to know more? Okay. By the way, am I talking too fast for anyone? Okay. I'm American. I talk fast for Americans, so I have to try to control myself when I'm outside the U.S. Let's jump into the extract phase. Here's what you do in the extract phase. You look at yourself from 2 angles. Introspectively, who am I, what's important to me, where do I want to go in my career, what do I think makes me exceptional, and so forth. And also from the outside in. Because each of you has a reputation. The question is, do you know what it is? Is it consistent with how you see yourself? Is it going to be helpful to you as you move forward in your career? And you need to make sense of both those halves, right? The internal perspective and the external perspective. Here are some of the things that you need to look at. Your vision for the world, what you see possible for the world. Your mission or purpose, which is your role in turning that vision into reality. Your values, which are your operating principles. They're the things that drive you every day. You get upset with yourself when you violate them. You get mad at others when they violate them. Knowing what they are is critical. Understanding the connection point between your personal values and the values of your company or team, really important. And your passions. A lot of people think with passions, here's what I do for work. Here's what I'm passionate about. And a lot of people think that they are just completely disconnected and there's no way to connect them. And I've worked with a lot of executives, and we have found ways to bring those passions to work. When you somehow connect those passions with what you do, you're engaged, you're motivated, you're ignited, you're attractive to those around you. So you have to give yourself the task to find out how you bring those passions to work. Really important. The next thing you need to think about is goals. And I'll tell you why. Goals give your brand direction. If you don't know where you're going, right, this is something Yogi Berra, a sports star in the U.S. said. He said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. So it's absolutely true, right? When you know what you want, you point your brand there. If this is where you want to go, that's where you point your brand. If this is where you want to go, that's where you point your brand. So critical that you know your goals and that you document them and read them every day. How many of you at the beginning of this year documented your goals for your career at the beginning of 2012? Thanks to all 5 of you. Since you documented them, how many of you have read them? Okay, we're going to lock that door. We're going to spend some more time in here. Here is why you need to document your goals and read them every day. We have a part of our brain called the RAS. How many people have heard of that? Stands for Reticular Activating System. It is the traffic cop that decides what makes it into our conscious mind and what doesn't. Every day, you're bombarded with more than 700 billion stimuli. And a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction makes it into your conscious mind. What makes it in is what's self-serving. So when you read your goals every day, you're saying, hello, Raz. This is really important to me. Be on the lookout for anything that will help me achieve this goal. And what you see that day will be different. Have you ever had an experience like this? Did you ever decide, I'm going to buy the red BMW? And once you do, you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden there's so many red BMWs. They're everywhere. Did something like that happen? I have a friend who's recently pregnant. She said, I walked down the street, everybody's pregnant. It's your RAS. So think of how powerful this is. If you spend the 7 seconds it takes each day to read your goal, just that act is helping you get toward that goal, right? And this is really where branding and goals connect, because you need to apply that brand to where you want to go. All right. So here's your do for this. Document your goals and read them daily. So for the people who have not done that, this is probably a good, if you're writing down some action items, this might be a good one to do. Okay. We've talked about the introspective piece. I want to switch gears and talk about your reputation. Do you know the 5 words people would use to describe you? Do you know what people would say is your greatest strength or greatest weakness? Do you know if it would match what you would say about yourself? You cannot complete the branding process without knowing what other people think about you. And the longer you're in a career, the bigger that reputation is, right? It could be all over the place, it could be consistent, it may not be what you want or need it to be to move forward. And this is critical. I want to talk about a tool that you're going to have an opportunity, and a number of you will have an opportunity, right? Yep. To use. So I developed, a long time ago, I developed this tool called 360 Reach. And here's what it does. It allows you to anonymously ask the people who know you what they think about you. It's not like a 360 that's done inside companies that asks, how were you at this? It asks, who are you? And you get data back. You also complete a self-assessment, and you can do a comparative analysis between how you see you and how others see you. This is a critical step in the process. Now, if you complete, oops, it was on that slide, I think. If you complete, there's a form in your handouts, and if you complete that form and provide your email address, we can send you a password to 360 Reach. And what you will do is think about everyone who knows you, friends, family, networking contacts, managers, employees, past people that you work with, as long as they know you well, and you can anonymously get that feedback and use it to look at the other half of the equation. And wait for this password, because if you go to that, we will charge you money. And we love to charge people money, but we don't want to charge you money. So if you can give your completed form to Monica before you leave. Yes?
I don't have it. She doesn't have it.
You don't have the form. Okay. We will sort it out, and you can get us your email at the end. Anyone who doesn't have the form, if you get us your email, we will send it to you. You'll get an email from 360 Reach, and the subject will be registration details. And Monica, does everyone know who Monica is? Great. Okay. Now, this is what it feels like to have a brand, right? And so Richard Branson, I think, one of the world's most successful people and one of the world's strongest brands, because everything he does is connected to his value of risk-taking, right? What does he do for fun? Balloons. Hot air balloons around the world, right? Everything he's done, right? This is how he went after Coca-Cola, the world's strongest brand, on a tank in Times Square, crushing Coke cans, right? Who goes after the world's strongest brand in the world but Richard Branson? He loves to take risks, and he loves adventure. When he launched Virgin Bridal, that's how he did it. And when he launched his book, that's how he launched his book. That will not be how I will be launching my book in November, right? But that wouldn't be on brand for me. So if we gave him some brand attributes, it would be innovative, bold, maverick, successful, competitive, risk-taker, boundless. Everything he does is connected to who he is, and that's why he's wildly successful. What's his new project? Space. Who but Richard Branson would say, all I want to take people to outer space, right? Totally on brand for Mr. Risk and Adventure. So you'll learn about that. And here's the thing, you need to seek constant feedback, because you need to know, is my brand working? Is it still today what it was yesterday? Does it need to evolve, because everything around me changes? So you need to be open to that feedback and know that you can make some changes. Now, one really important thing here about your reputation, if stuff comes back in your 360 Reach report and you say, oh, I don't like that brand, this is the brand I want to be, if it's not authentic, it's not going to work, right? You will be found out. You need to build your brand around who you really are, not about something else. How many people remember the group Milli Vanilli? Yeah. Once we learned that they couldn't sing, kind of gone. That's what will happen. Okay, so. All right, so one more very important thing you need to do when building your brand, you need to eliminate this 4-letter word that begins with F. Who would like to venture a guess? Who said fake? Fake is one. Fear is another. Fail is another. Those are all ugly 4-letter words. This one's, and by the way, you can tell this is not a New York crowd, which is where I'm from, because I get different words. Fine. And with fine, I want you to think of words like average, adequate, okay, acceptable. Right? Do you want people to describe the work you do with those terms? Probably not. Yet it has been your full-time job since you were this high to become fine. And that is because we are obsessed with fixing weaknesses. That's what we do, right? You're in 3rd grade, you're doing 5th grade math, right? You're a genius in math. Your teacher doesn't say, you're a genius in math, let's see what we can do with that. They say, your penmanship isn't good. Go get some help with your penmanship, right? We learn these behaviors, right? First job we get out of school, your manager says, nobody on our team can give presentations like you, but your budgeting skills aren't so good. Go to HR and learn how to do some budgeting. And what happens is you become fine at a lot of things. That's the opposite of branding. What strong brands do is they take the thing that they are better at than anyone else and they maximize it. And they don't worry about weaknesses. So when you get your 360 Reach data back, here's what I want you to do. You made a whole section of weaknesses. And chances are, within all that content that comes back, there's going to be 2 or 3 themes to those weaknesses. For each of them, you're going to ask yourself this one question. Will this weakness get in the way of my success? And if the answer is yes, you need to fix it, without question, right? It's going to prevent you, it will impede your success. If the answer is no, I want you to ignore it. Just don't even think about it. And I want you to go to the section in 360 Reach where it has strengths, and I want you to ask yourself, which of these strengths is going to enable me to stand out, to achieve my goals, and to deliver great value to the company I'm working for, or if you're currently looking for a job, to the company that I want to work for. And those are the things you're going to build your brand around. That's what's really important. So people then will be using superlatives to describe you, right? The most creative person we have on our team. This is the best relationship builder we have. So-and-so is extraordinary at taking complex ideas and making them simple, right? That's what you want. You want people using superlatives to describe you. So the ditch here is, if the weakness isn't getting in the way, don't think about it. Focus on your strengths. All right. So, excuse me. The question that we want to answer is, what do you want to be known for? And it's a pretty hard question, right? We often want to be known for a lot of things, and really distilling it down to the thing we want to be known for is a challenge. And as you do some of the work in understanding your brand and getting that feedback, you're going to get some clarity about maybe those few things that you want to be known for. Once you do that, you can start to think about, okay, this has all been about me. I need to be thinking about the people who need to know me. And that's your brand community. These are the people who need to know who you are. And regardless of what you do, they are people inside your company and people outside your company. How many people here manage a team of people? Great. You have to source staff, right? If you don't have a strong brand outside your company, how are you going to build a whole bunch of fans who want to come work for you? How are you going to be able to connect with colleagues to say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of person, to find the exact right kind of person? How are you going to solve problems that can't be solved with the people you have inside your organization? So regardless of what you do, what Manuel was saying earlier, that applies to both looking for a job and to your ability to do your job. So having that external brand is absolutely critical to be able to do that. So you got to get clear about who these people are, because when you get into the second phase of the process, which we're going to talk about in a moment, these are the only people you're going to be getting your messages to, right? Oh, God, are you not enjoying it? I'm over I've been there. So I have a quiz for you. So we've been talking about you. We talked about making sure your message is at your target audience. The third element is thinking about your peers and knowing what separates you from your peers. So I have a question. MasterCard, Visa, what's the difference? Silence, right? Because there's not a lot of difference. How about American Express? Different? Yes. Yeah. What makes it different? More expensive. I pay $450 for my American Express card. I pay nothing for my MasterCard and Visa. Why would I do that? You get lots of services, right? And membership rewards. You're a member, not a card holder, right? So here's how I want you to think about this as it relates to you. At the highest level, they're exactly the same. You can go anywhere. Well, maybe not anywhere, because American Express isn't accepted everywhere. But you can go to a lot of places and use any of the three and buy whatever product it is you're looking for, right? Highest level. When you dig deeper, American Express offers something that's not available from the others. Now, not everyone in the world loves American Express, and that's okay. But enough people do that it's a wildly successful company, right? It gets people like me to pay a lot of money to have that card every year. So here's how I want you to think about it for you. If you are your job title, you're on the left side of the screen. You're completely replaceable by anybody else who has that job title. If you think about yourself as those unique things that you add on that aren't available from anyone else, then you're American Express. Then you get people paying a premium for the work you do. Then you get a lot of control over your career, right? Because it's only available from you. So, and by the way, Key thing, competence, right? The competence is the base. Each of these does what it's supposed to do. You need to be able to do your job. But that's not enough anymore. It's about layering on top of that those unique, valuable, attractive qualities that are going to get me excited about you. All right, so the dare here is really to flaunt your quirks. Take the things that make you different from everyone else who does what you do and make them more visible. So if we have more time later, I'll share with you some stories of some people who do that. It's creating amazing success for them. This takes us to the express phase of the personal branding process. And this is where you build visibility and credibility. Right? A lot of people think branding is about telling people how great you are. Right? It's about telling people how great you are and demonstrating what you tell people makes you great. Right? If you say you're the most creative person in the world, I get to see creativity when I go to that meeting, when I have that phone call with you, when I get that email. Or I'm not going to think the most creative person in the world. So that's really critical. Here is where we practice the 3 C's of branding. Every strong brand in the world, whether it's a product brand, a company brand, or a personal brand, can boast these 3 C's. Clarity, consistency, and constancy. They're clear about who they are and who they're not. They're always that, and they're always visible to their target audience, right? So this is a test you want to give yourself. Am I passing the 3C test? And if not, what do you need to do to make that happen? Now, once you do that, you need to build your own media plan, just like any company has, so that you can reach these people who need to know you and let them know what you're about. It might be writing articles, it might be speaking publicly, it could be contributing to your corporate intranet, it could be creating your own networking group, right? For everyone, it's going to be different, but there's a lot of different ways of getting your message out there. What you want is your point of view. You want people to know what you believe and what you're about, right? What we learned about Manuel is he said, I am amazing about metrics, right? I forgot your exact words, but I'm a fanatic about metrics, right? And there are other people who work in his field of marketing where they're more about the creative. I think we should try things. It doesn't matter what the metrics are, but marketing is about creating new things. He's saying it's really about measuring the effectiveness of it, right? It's a point of view. So having a point of view that you really are convicted about is going to be critical. Here's my dare for you. I want you to take your most difficult communication, right? Let's say you don't like public speaking. How many people don't really like public speaking? And are afraid to, I'm not going to make you stand up in public speak. I really don't like it, but I'm not going to let anybody know. It's ahead of death in the list of fears. It goes public speaking, death, spiders. So, the comedian Terry Seinfeld says at a funeral, people would rather be in the coffin than delivering the eulogy. I think it's really quite funny. So, take the thing that challenges you the most. Maybe it's writing an article, maybe it's speaking publicly, and give yourself the challenge of using that as a way to get yourself visible to your target audience. Right? Take that. That's taking that step outside your comfort zone. It's going to be very powerful and very helpful to you as you move forward. How many of you have ever Googled yourselves? How many of you have Googled somebody else? All right. How many of you have Googled someone at the company you work or works for? Okay. All right, so just follow the logic, right? If you are Googling others, including those in your company, people are Googling you. People who work for you, people who may have a meeting with you but don't know you yet. And what they learn in Google is who you are, especially if they haven't met you. So this brilliance that Manuel shared with us earlier about managing your brand on the web is absolutely critical. When I started my personal branding work, this didn't even exist. No one Googled anyone. No one knew what Google was. Right? Today, it is the first place anyone goes. We know in the job market, 72%, and this is an international number, not a U.S. number, 72% of executive recruiters and hiring managers use Google to evaluate candidates. And 39% have eliminated candidates based on either what Google did or didn't reveal. Right? And we know that people inside companies are using this as a way to evaluate their colleagues. So you really need to work on it. here's what I'm going to share with you really quickly because we just don't have a lot of time. But when somebody Googles you, they don't realize they're doing this, but this is what they're looking at. They're looking at volume. How much stuff is there on the web? If there's a lot of stuff about you, then clearly you have something to say. Even more important than that, relevance. How consistent is the stuff with who you say you are, right? If you say you're the most creative person in the world, but they don't see that in those results, they're not going to believe that. Diversity. Is it a whole bunch of text-based content? Or are there some images? Is there some video? Is there some real-time content? Right? Purity. Can I tell if this is the person I'm really trying to find, or if it's somebody else who shares their name? Right? How easily can I find that person? And lastly, validation. This is becoming the most important measure of online ID. This is about what do other people say about this person, right? How many of you have a LinkedIn account? Great. How many of you have recommendations in LinkedIn? Excellent. They've just started, in addition to recommendations, they have endorsements now as well, and they're endorsed based on certain categories, right? So it's very branding oriented, right? It could be based on certain things that you want to be known for. So really important, that is an example of validation, right? What are other people saying about this person, not just what this person says about themselves. So I'm going to give you a tool. If you want to learn how you show up in those 5 measures of online ID, you can go to onlineidcalculator.com. It's free. It's a tool my company developed, and you will get an output that will say, in volume, relevance, purity, diversity, and validation, here is how you show up. Okay, so it's onlineidcalculator.com. All right, so my do here is Google yourself regularly. The other interesting thing about Google is your Google results change about as frequently as the weather in London, right? Because everyone else is adding stuff on, and Google's algorithm is changing, so you need to know what's there all the time. People posting things about you and so forth. But what I want to do is give you a feel for the kinds of content you need to be creating to put on the web. First thing is a branded bio. A branded bio is not a bio with a list of everything that you've ever done. It is a bio that makes me want to get to know you. It's got personality in there. It becomes clear to me what your unique promise of value is. It shares with me some things that may not be work-related, right? Maybe 10% of the content is about what you're passionate about or what you do on weekend, or how that stuff connects to what you do. You want to make sure that this is something that's going to hook people and get them to want to know more about you. Headshot. How many of you have a professionally taken headshot? Okay. So we have some work to do here, people. Do you know that people are less likely to connect with someone in LinkedIn if the connection request comes without a headshot? Do you know that people are suspect of the content if they can't connect with that face, right? When we lived in these little villages in the past, and the only way we knew people was we passed them in the local store, we got to know people that way. But we're much more dubious about people. This internet's such a weird place, right? Your headshot is what gives people this feeling of comfort about that data. Then your thought leadership content, what you want to be known for. It could be articles, it could be white papers, and so forth. These are the kinds of things that you want to be creating and making visible. A headshot, and I say professionally taken headshot, not one that your mother took of you at last year's family vacation, right? You want one that really projects who you are. And in LinkedIn, by the way, make sure your headshot faces in to the content, right? You don't want to be looking off screen. Why does that guy not like his own content? Okay, so here's my dare for you. Get a professionally taken headshot. Most companies in the world seem to have some opportunity to do this. I work with a lot of companies where sometimes some branding programs, we have a big branding program we do with one of the big 4 accounting firms, and we have a headshot photographer on site, and everyone rotates out and gets their headshot done. It's that important. Okay, so I want to talk specifically about video. This is the new tool. If you want to stand out, video is it. And here's why. Video allows you to deliver a complete communication. words only account for 7% of a communication. The rest is body language, tone of voice, intonation, and so forth. So if you want people to really get to know you, if you want an opportunity to really convey your message to people, video is a tool to make it happen. And until maybe 3 years ago, video was impossible. Video sharing sites were cumbersome and hard. We didn't have video cameras on our computers. It was very hard to create a video. There were a lot of things, bandwidth, right? We didn't watch a lot of video because, we just didn't have the bandwidth to make it happen. All of that's gone away. And so video is now the best tool to build your brand. Every year I do my top tips for trends for the coming year for personal branding. Last year's 5 of the 12 trends were video. So really important. And here's what I want to talk about when it comes to video. Create a video bio, right? Think about this. If you tell people what makes you great in a video, and then you post that video on your LinkedIn profile, it is such a differentiated profile from everybody else's. Someday this is going to be commonplace. Right now, it is differentiating. So do that, and then you take your video and you post it to all these different places, right, for free. Video shows up typically on page 1 in a Google search because guess what? Google owns YouTube. So all of a sudden with blended search, voila, there's a whole row of videos on page 1 in a Google search. So it's a great way to make sure that you're gonna pop up in a Google search as well. My dare here, how many of you have video on the web? You all came to the right place. So I'm super excited. Bravo, congratulations on that. And by the way, a video bio is a great thing to do. There's other ways to use video to build your brand. You want to talk to your target audience? I have a client out in San Jose. She manages an international team. Her team is everywhere in the world. There's not one other person co-located where she is. Every Sunday night she creates a video so that they feel connected to her, saying, hey, here's what happened last week. Here's what I'm going to be working on this week. I wish you a great week. Give me a call on Wednesday or Thursday. Those are the days I'm going to be in this time zone, whatever. And it has created an incredible team bond. So there's millions of different ways to use video. Again, you have to find the way that's going to be right for your brand. All right. So the message is, and this is Manuel's message, build your brand in bits and bytes, right? You can't just have a brand in the real world. Even if all the work that you do is internal, you need this external brand to add value to who you are internally. By the way, when you're the person internally who's really known in the community in your area of expertise, really, really powerful tool for, he's always speaking at these conferences. And it has a lot of value for you. So don't miss out on that opportunity. And the do here is, be lazy, it's good for your brand, which means take the same content and repurpose it. If you go speak somewhere publicly, turn that speech into an article. Take that presentation, create a PDF, and post it to SlideRocket. Use the same content over and over. Because people, you might be sick of it, people haven't seen it for the first time, right? So being lazy is a great branding technique, I tell everyone. Okay. So this leads us to our last piece of the puzzle, which is managing your brand environment, right? So we've done extract, which is unearthing your brand. Express, which is all about getting that brand message out to people in the real and virtual world. And include is managing your appearance, right? Your office environment, your personal brand identity system, and your professional network. And because we have only 40 minutes, which I've probably already gone over, I want to focus on just your professional network. Really important. Do you know, this is how most jobs are found. If you're looking for someone to work on your team, reaching out to your network will find you the ideal candidate. If you're currently looking for work, your professional network will help you get that job. Most jobs are filled this way, everywhere in the world, right? So really important. Even I was just in Beijing. And even in Beijing, people were telling me, this is how it happens. So having a strong professional network is great. It helps you do your job. You can reach out to these folks for great creative ideas that you can bring into your company. You can benchmark what you're doing. The technique is to give. You need to constantly give value to your network. That's why we're going to be there. But you know why we don't give to our network? We want to. I think all of us are generous in nature. That's what we want to do. Because we have so many emails and voicemails and meetings. And there's no item on our do list high enough that says, oh, call that old colleague that you haven't talked to for a while, or take this colleague out to lunch, right? You just don't do it. So find ways to add one network giving activity every single day, and you will nurture an incredibly strong, powerful network. This will be the success of your career. The Lone Ranger syndrome does not work. So the ditch here is the drop to go it alone, right? I mean, a lot of us, we feel like, I have the answers, and I can do it, and I'm comfortable, and I'm confident, and I know what I'm doing. We are much more successful when we're part of a community, or a fan club, or a tribe, whatever you'd like to say. All right, so here is the summary of everything we talked about in incredible rapid fire. Your brand is your constant. If you're looking for a job, it is the thing that will get you hired in the right job. If you're working inside companies, it is your tool for success. 90% of my business is companies hiring me to help people figure out their brand. They know that they want to get the best from these folks. And by the way, if you have teams, think about how you can help them with their brand. This helps with retention, it helps with engagement, it helps get greater value from those folks. So really think about, how do I take these concepts and bring them to my team? How do we become a branded team that are working together? It's about authenticity, right? Being yourself, differentiation, standing out from everyone else who does what you do, and relevance, making sure that the people who need to know you find you compelling. That's what makes you successful. When you know that, you create your plan to be visible in the real and virtual world, and you make sure that everything that surrounds you reinforces that brand, right? You want to bolster your brand rather than destroy it or create confusion. And so I leave you with this. Do you mark everything you do with your brand? Right? When you go to a meeting, do people know that you had been there? Have you left your mark on it? Does your email, is there some signature that says, gosh, I know exactly who this came from? And if not, what can you do to make that happen? Right? And that's what branding is about. It's about putting your stamp on every single thing you do, and then everyone just automatically sees it. Okay, so if you have questions and wanted to reach me, this is how you could do it. You could also, I don't know if you have Joanne's contact. Joanne's contact details are in your materials, and she's local. And so reaching out to her would be an incredible and probably easier time zone thing to do. And my last dare is to be yourself, your best self, right? We think our companies want us to be something, but really, they want you to be your best self every day, and that's what's going to deliver value for them, and it's going to make you happier and more successful. Okay. So, are we doing Q&A or?
Bueno, vamos a pasar al turno de retos y preguntas. Esta vez lo haremos en ambos idiomas, quisiera en castellano y quisiera en inglés. Podéis levantar la mano y yo me acerco para acercarse al micrófono. Si tenéis alguna pregunta.
Hola. Sí, yo tenía una pregunta acerca de lo que ha comentado de las recomendaciones en LinkedIn. Yo cuando veo recomendaciones son siempre de los amigos que hablan muy bien de una persona. Realmente...
Recomendaciones endorsements.
Endorsements es diferente, pero las recomendaciones, si pides un amigo que te recomiende, obviamente son todas buenas. Yo nunca he visto una recomendación mala en LinkedIn. ¿Tiene algún sentido eso?
Hombre, mejor tenerlas que no... you want to answer the question? You may
I have no idea what the question is.
But
I like this though. It sounded incredible.
It says all of them are good. You want to answer yourself or?
Yeah, excellent point. And it is true that you get to choose whether you put a recommendation into your profile or not. And so everyone looking at them knows that you have had a say as to whether they're in there or not. It still helps. It's the second place recruiters go to in a LinkedIn profile, so they're still looking for that. But they're not looking for, oh, you were great. They're looking for details. The most creative person on the team, the most visionary. They're looking for things to back up what they have in resumes and so forth. And here's the new thing, okay? So you want to get, like, I don't want to blow your minds too much, but here's where it's going. How many people use something like, I don't know what the Spanish version of TripAdvisor or...
TripAdvisor, it's quite popular here.
Okay. Do you use that to find out, should I stay at this hotel or not and whatnot? This is happening to people. So in the very near future, there will be tools where we will be able to go in, if we're part of your network, and anonymously rate you on a whole bunch of different categories, and you will have a brand that will really be from feedback from others around. And there's already some tools. There's already a place called honestly.com, branchout.com allows you to do this, talent.me allows you to do this, and essentially TripAdvisor for people is where we're going. And we will make hiring decisions based on the collective input of others about an individual. So not too scary. But
por complementar, me gustaría añadir que, bueno, cuando alguien te recomienda, también está, digamos, teniéndote parte de su marca. Es decir, si alguien te está recomendando, tú eres por así decirlo, está comprometiendo su propia marca. Con lo cual, bueno, más allá del nivel de amistad, bueno, si la persona que te está recomendando tiene un cierto nivel, bueno, pues siempre es desde luego positivo contar con eso. En segundo lugar, William hacía también referencia a algo totalmente nuevo desde hace muy pocas semanas, que son los endorsements. Al revés de las recomendaciones, que son puramente textuales y llevan más a detalles, está también el tema de que ahora mismo probablemente muchos de vosotros lo estáis recibiendo. Bueno, pues vuestros amigos están, o vuestros conocidos, vuestros contactos profesionales en LinkedIn están diciendo, oye, este tío es bueno en digital marketing, o este tío es bueno en recursos humanos, o es lo que sea. Ahí ya tienes una medida también cuantitativa. Es decir, si 50 personas han dicho que tú eres bueno en recursos humanos, pues debe ser que eres bueno en recursos humanos. Y ahí no hay una palabra, no es un tema cualitativo, es un tema cuantitativo de 50 personas han considerado que este tío es bueno en recursos humanos. Por añadir mis 2 centavos, ¿no?
Sí, bueno, antes de nada agradecer a los conferenciantes, vamos, que he aprendido mucho en la conferencia esta que dan. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. ¿La popularización de un medio como la recomendación no será a largo plazo negativa? Quiero decir, era fantástico que alguien te recomendara cuando había 4 en LinkedIn, pero ahora que está todo el mundo en LinkedIn y que todo el mundo recurre al mecanismo de la recomendación, ¿no será negativo? ¿Habrá que añadir un otro elemento más para generar valor nuevo? Es que estamos en una pirámide en que todo se está popularizando. Yo creo que ese elemento diferenciador a la larga no es productivo. ¿Qué opinan cualquiera de los dos?
Bueno, mientras le traduce, ¿no? Yo creo que no veo muchos matices con respecto a la pregunta anterior. Pues con lo cual básicamente te contestaría lo mismo. Hombre, un exceso de recomendaciones yo no lo veo positivo. Es decir, si yo siento que un tío tiene 20 recomendaciones, parece que las ha cultivado. En cambio, si tienes unas pocas recomendaciones buenas de perfiles de alto nivel, un perfil de alto nivel no va a comprometer su self-branding por muy amiguito tuyo que sea. Con lo cual yo tiendo a buscar más en esas recomendaciones poco y bueno que mucho y malo. Y te digo que los headhunters con que trato es una medida también de diferenciación que utilizan. O sea, quien entra y tiene 40 recomendaciones de gente de poco nivel es mucho peor que quien tiene 3 recomendaciones de CEOs o de gente importante, porque un CEO no va a comprometer su marca por muy amigo tuyo que sea.
Sí, porque España se caracteriza por mucho clientelismo. O sea, me conozco, me genera confianza, etcétera, es de mi círculo de amigos.
Pero yo creo que tenemos que pensar más en positivo y pensar que la España de Paco Martínez Soria es una que
No, pero esa está ahí. O sea, quiero decir, España figura en el ranking de países europeos como un país donde funciona mucho el estudio y te conozco y la digitalización.
Si tú tienes un perfil alto y has llegado a ese perfil alto, ¿recomendarías a alguien que sabes que es un inútil y lo harías públicamente en un sitio donde hay 6 millones de personas menos?
Tienes todos los secretarios de Estado de todos los ministerios son...
Política aparte, por favor, estamos hablando de o sea, Willem, do you want to add something to this?
Here's the thing. No, I feel like the one thing I will add is to differentiate your LinkedIn profile, because recommendations are becoming less differentiating. Use the 3 links that you have in your profile to link to things that are going to demonstrate what makes you exceptional. If you have a presentation that you've uploaded, if you have a video, do that. You can embed a video. There are 3 apps now that allow you to embed a video in your LinkedIn profile. So do the other things to your profile that make it stand out, but don't miss the recommendations, because none is not going to support you. But yes, having them is becoming less important because many people have them.
We're also talking about cultural peculiarities of Spain, about clientelism and so on. So.
Okay, well, best I say
at an international level.
We have an expert here too.
Responding to the first gentleman's question, then linked to this, I think it works both ways. I've been to conferences and I've met somebody in a dinner, known him for, let's say, half an hour's conversation, and then they asked me to recommend them.
Of course you don't.
No, of course not. So I think, it's the discipline yourself, is protecting your own brand, so never put your name to those sort of recommendations. And at the same time, exactly as Manuel said, be very selective of which recommendations you want. That will really strengthen your brand, to have few, but well thought out, and with the links to videos and other things that support the central message, follow security. So you decide what you want to be known for and build recommendations and other links around that message to become, really authentic and relevant.
Could too much activity on the internet be dangerous? I read a lot about the fact that if you have some bad opinion about yourself, or any bad, maybe not even true information on internet, that it's almost impossible to get rid of it.
Well, actually, you know what? So negative content on the web, we call it digital dirt, and it actually is easier to get rid of than you think. There are entire companies. There's a company called reputation.com that you can actually pay to do things to make it happen. But typically what happens when we have digital dirt is either we posted something that we shouldn't have. A lot of Gen Y people post some photos that probably shouldn't be there, right? That stuff we can typically exactly
uploaded photos of themselves around good.
Exactly, and there's 2 options when you have digital dirt. You can either vacuum it up, right? So if you posted it, or you can get whoever posted it to take it down, great, it's gone. The other option is to sweep it under the rug. And the way you sweep it under the rug is 87% of people never go beyond page 3 in a Google search.
Keep creating content,
so
it will be moving.
So what you want to do is push it down so that it doesn't appear on the first 3 pages. That means creating relevant, high value, high Google juice content that will push this content down. So that's the case. And by the way, if you have one negative thing, but it sits among a whole bunch of glowing things, people are used to the fact that one person may have an opinion that doesn't work. If you have a whole page of digital dirt, then you have something major
search engine optimization can help a lot.
And search engine optimization, exactly. It's the tool for making it happen.
I have a question as a engineering talent broker. The company is 40 years old. We have thousands of CVs. And I'm now constantly bombarded with invitations. And I'm at the quandary of whether I bite the bullet and just jump into the digital pool, in which case all of my contacts become immediately available to all my competitors. Or do I create my own website and try to entice people to come to my website and then become sort of like their agency, their talent agency? I'm really at a quandary because I come from an internet background and I know the tools, but I feel that once I do put all of my contacts online, I really become naked to my competitors. And I actually give away all of my contacts to my clients.
Yes, and it's a challenge, right? And so here's the thing: they don't need to be part of your network if you know who they are and you can reach them, right? So I would go with an active mode rather than passive mode, right? So when we're looking at the web, we have active searches and passive searches that we have to worry about for ourselves. An active search is we're telling someone to go look for stuff about us, and they go find it, right? They Google us or whatever because we've told them to do that. Passive searches are when people out there are looking for stuff, and we need to make sure the content that shows up is correct, right? So I think that an approach that would work for you is, some client gives you a job that you need to fill, right? Rather than look through your network that you've made public, don't make your network public. Be a sleuth in LinkedIn, right, to find the people who would be ideal, whether they're in your network or not, right? So you can look at the network that you've built in the real world and see if anyone's in there, and then you can still use the web as a way of, by searching on keywords, to find the people that are going to be ideal. They eventually become a part of your network, right? But that's a way to source that talent without necessarily having this giant pool that you're constantly going back to, because there could be people who even in your community aren't the right people that you're looking for. And so the recruiters that I talk to are really, they're using this in a very sleuthy way, which means, by the way, when you're in LinkedIn, you need to change your setting in your profile to say, I want to search anonymously. Otherwise, your competitors will be able to see every profile that you've visited.
So in essence, basically you're suggesting I become sort of a black hole in the sense that there's an event horizon beyond which they can't see what I'm doing, but at the same time I can see everything outside of my event horizon.
Absolutely, and so let's say your competitors are actually creating these communities, you can just go into that community and figure out, so your community grows, but they don't necessarily need to be linked to you.
Okay, and I have a follow-up question. I have my business, my activity, and then I have some, let's say, some other activities, let's say some writing or some political essays. What do you suggest about creating multiple personas or multiple brands that happen to, for example, I'm Jim Novak, but in Spain I'm Jaime. So do I, again, bite the bullet and choose one brand and link everything to that? Or is it feasible that people create multi-brands for the same person?
Yeah. So my thought is one brand. What do you think about this,
I was
Joanne?
thinking exactly the same. Because when people are getting mixed up, if you're Jaime, Jim, or they don't know if it's the same person, they can't find you, it's a safer strategy to become known by one name so that anyone who finds that related to the different activities, they know it's the same person.
And it's not inappropriate for people to learn that you do things. So I'm a personal branding public speaker, right? That's what I do, I fly around the world. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the web about, I collect TV advertisements, and I love architecture and big skyscrapers, and a whole bunch of stuff on the web that has nothing to do with personal branding. And frankly, all of this stuff, it adds to make you more interesting. People see that you have this other stuff going around. You're not just, in this box of you work 24/7. And so it's becoming more and more common that be the case, right? And I say use the 80-20 rule. You want 80% out of the stuff out there to be professional, and 20% to be, tell me why I want to get to know you. What makes you interesting to me? And sometimes it's those things that connected with somebody. I was at the Petronas Towers, and I published something on my Facebook page because I'm interested in tall skyscrapers, and it connected me with someone about personal branding that it otherwise wouldn't have happened.
It enriches your mind.
Exactly.
But at the same time, people who get to know you in one of the facets of your professional life, if they hear that you're busy in other areas as well, they'll find that interesting, and they can become your brand ambassadors. So let's say we speak at the aperitif, you tell me a little bit more about everything you do. I go next week to somewhere else, and the subject comes up, one of the areas that you're active in, and I can't remember if you're Jim or Jaime, or, make it very difficult for me to recommend you, whereas if you have one name, and become known authentically and with a value proposition in the three areas, because it is authentic, you do things well, you're passionate about the three areas, but you make it very difficult for brand ambassadors if you've got all these different, personas?
Unless, of course, you hold points of views that are not appropriate from the political standpoint or whatever.
Well, and that brings up a good point, is, how willing are we when we have views that may not, are we willing to say, listen, I feel so strongly about this view, I don't care if 80% of the world isn't going to agree with me, right? And that's a decision everyone has to make. Great point.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for this interesting conference and listen to. I have a question about these rating new networks like cloud or gamification. How do you see this on the personal branding? Because I recently read one article about that in the United States there are some HR companies that are recruiting people just looking into the cloud rating. And it sounds very interesting, but even though I'm on cloud and all these things, I don't see very clear what is the rating parameters they have just for rating people. Thank you.
You want to start? I'll take this one. Okay, well, maybe in the States it's working to that extent, but of course not in Spain. Okay. But if you're interested in how it is in the States, okay, it's true. There are certain small social networks that add a lot to your positioning, much more than the generic ones. We name them horizontal or vertical social networks, and maybe that's especially interesting to cultivate your positioning in vertical social networks also. And above that, there are tools like the ones you're mentioning that kind of rate your overall presence in different social networks, being cloud the one cloud KLOUT, for those of you who haven't heard of it, which will be the majority of the people here in Spain, that this kind of rating of how good as your presence overall social networks, both vertical and horizontal. And well, it's the way of rating is more quantitative than qualitative. That's what I really don't like that much about cloud. But it's absolutely true that certain American headhunters are putting an accent on your cloud rating. So it would be worth to cultivate that and keeping into account that's more quantitative than qualitative if you're intending to apply for a job position in the States.
Yeah. And I think in addition to that on cloud, I think one of the reasons cloud has become interesting to recruiters, right, because there are 7,000 options out there, is because a lot of it speaks to your influence and how big your brand community is and how many people you interact with. And when a company is hiring you, they're hiring you and all the people you know and all the people you can reach out to. And your ability to connect to those resources is really a valuable tool. So I would say if that's one of the things that you bring to a company, right, you might want to check out your own cloud score, and just as a way of how influential am I, and again, this is just in social media, it doesn't say what you do in your real world context, but to be able to demonstrate, hey, I am the most connected person about this topic, and that's here are the people I influence and so forth, and even looking at the people who sit in your cloud four corners to be a tool for differentiating you over others.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the higher your cloud score or rating, the more people you know over social networks, but maybe you do not know them in such a detail, but you know a lot of people, so it's more quantitative than qualitative, but of course it's a means of measuring.
It's much more based on Twitter, I guess.
Well, it started out with just Twitter, and now
but it's adding more and more social
networks. And what they want to be is the overall. I talked to the folks there not so long ago, and they want to be the overall. This is your score.
Yeah, which means that you're in a lot of social networks and with a lot of content in each of them.
Yeah, and you'll see it here. They got a huge amount of seed funding. So.
¿Entendéis qué significa cloud en inglés? Significa más o menos impacto, influencia. Así que están midiendo tu impacto, tu influencia en estos entornos.
Es una nota, o sea, un score que da idea de en cuántas redes sociales estás. Empezó con Twitter, pero ahí incluye tanto redes sociales horizontales como verticales, ¿vale? Cuántos contactos tienes en cada red y cuál es la cantidad de información que posteas. Lo que pasa es que mide todo, claro, muy cuantitativo, más que cualitativo. A lo mejor posteas muchísimo y estás posteando el mismo artículo en todas.
Yeah, the point is, as I say, it's still in early days, so it's more quantitative. But the idea would be to really measure how much influence as a leader, as a thought leader, as, you know, with ideas, innovation, you know, content, how much influence and impact do you
Y lo que es más
have in
importante
certain
es que se ha
areas?
convertido en un estándar.
Yeah.
Sobre todo en Estados Unidos se ha convertido en un estándar de tu influencia en social media. Es gratuito, os invito a todos a que entréis y bueno, pues veáis cuál es vuestro cloud score, vuestro índice de influencia, dependiendo de cuán presentes estéis o no en redes sociales.
And the idea is that companies value that. If they're hiring a new leader or executive and they come with a high level of influence in their chosen fields or level of impact, that's obviously very interesting to somebody who has a low profile, not a strong brand, typical CV, still in Word, outdated, you know, so all of these things, you know, position you in the new world of work.
I can't help the temptation to ask the three experts in brand management what Spain can do to improve its own position in the world, given that you travel so much, and I heard that you're from Mexico and that you're a Spanish lover. Is there, in fact, the magazine that just is on the newsstands right now is that the Spanish brand is actually becoming somewhat of a liability, that Spanish multinationals are actually trying to shed the image of Spanish.
Just keep mentioning that they're in Spanish.
Right, that olive oil is packaged under Italian brands or and so forth. Does brand management have to come from a vision, a central vision? I mean, is there such thing as a government brand management?
That's interesting. The gentleman that I mentioned earlier on, Antonio Milan, I just met him at this conference. He just came from today, I think it was in Casa America. It was a think tank on what can we do about the crisis with the brand Spain, because it's really very, very damaging. And they had a big, I don't know who was invited to the meeting. And of course, that set me off because I'm passionate about Spain. I've lived here for 20 odd years, and it's no lie. I see many, many talented people, I believe, in Spain. But I said to him one thing. I was giving a conference in Mallorca with the President Balfa, and as a joke, I put a slide into my presentation. I said, I would like you to pass a decreto ley, because he's accused of passing them every 5 minutes. I thought, one more, no problem. And it would be to forbid the phrase, sí, pero. Because in the last 12 months, every time I talk to Spanish, así, pero en España, así los españoles, todo es negativo. Primero responden negativo. Y yo les digo, yo veo muchísimo talento, gente muy formada. Sí que los tiempos son difíciles, esto lo tenemos. Pero ahora, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Tenemos que pensar hacia adelante. Así que para mí es cada individuo apropiarse de su propio futuro. El gobierno no va a arreglar todo. Y segundo, yo creo que tenemos que aportar valor al mercado. Y si cada uno piensa, ¿sabes?, que mi responsabilidad es buscar dónde puedo aportar valor. Y si me hacen falta más conocimientos. Mucha gente está desempleado y no se levantan de la cama porque están deprimidos. Es a leer algo, a aprender algo, yo qué sé. Simplemente mi primera sugerencia sería trabajar con la gente con esta actitud. Es decir, primero que cada uno se dé cuenta que estamos en crisis, pero el mundo está cambiando. Y si no subimos al tren y innovamos y pensamos y seamos creativos, miramos estas nuevas oportunidades, nos quedamos mirando el ombligo, esperando que alguien nos arregle la situación y que la crisis pasa. Y no es tan sencillo. Así que solución fácil no hay, pero yo empezaría con cada individuo. Y si haces este proceso de branding, uno de los subproductos es confianza, autoestima, claridad, marcando los objetivos, exactamente lo que dijo William. Así que yo creo que si cada uno toma un poco la responsabilidad, podemos avanzar un poco.
Estoy totalmente de acuerdo con lo que estás diciendo. Como comentabas, acabo de volver de México, de dar clases allí la semana pasada, y bueno, la imagen que estamos transmitiendo fuera realmente es muy negativa y dificulta muchísimo hacer negocios allí. O sea, bueno, la primera pregunta que te hacían en México era, bueno, pero entonces, ¿qué es lo que pasa con Cataluña? ¿Cómo se está gestionando esto? ¿Cómo es que están pidiendo independencia y al mismo tiempo están pidiendo dinero? ¿El gobierno está en una posición de debilidad? Eso era lo que llevo escuchando en México toda la semana pasada. Hace un mes y medio estaba en Ecuador dando clase, hace 3 meses en Brasil. En Brasil llegué a oír, bueno, mucho venir aquí a hablar y tal, pero o a ofrecernos vuestros alumnos y tal, pero es que claro, os habéis cargado España, ahora os queréis cargar Brasil. Los bandazos que está dando el gobierno, la mala comunicación política que se está haciendo, hablábamos antes de políticos, por eso te decía, mira, de políticos prefiero no hablar, o sea, vamos a hablar de ejecutivos, que es otra casta más, en la cual no transmitimos tan mala imagen, ¿no? Pero dado que la clase política ni nos va a solucionar esto y flaco favor nos está haciendo a la marca España, o sea, la marca España fue algo magnífico en el pasado. En el Instituto de Empresa tenemos escrito el caso Marca España, que escribió Guillermo Cardoza, un profesor nuestro, de lo bien que se hizo esto en el pasado, hace 10 años, pero en estos 10 años políticamente la marca España ha sufrido muchísimo debido a los malos políticos que estamos teniendo, tanto por un lado como por otro, ¿no? Entonces la única forma de hacer esto es reforzar nuestras marcas corporativas y reforzar nuestras marcas personales de tal manera que unas refuercen a las otras, pero cierto es que la percepción internacional está haciendo daño y no es de extrañar que muchas multinacionales, como por ejemplo el Banco de Santander, subraya en su comunicación corporativa que solo hacen un pequeño porcentaje del negocio en España, que ellos son una marca internacional, y no es de extrañar porque precisamente en la sede del Santander era donde hacían estos comentarios sobre ejecutivos españoles en Sao Paulo. Entonces es entendible. ¿Qué podemos hacer? Pues lo que estamos hablando aquí.
I would say most of you said you manage teams. There's a good starting point. You guys are leaders. You need to motivate, engage, get the best. William always says you don't need to get the most out of your team, making them work 16, 18 hours a day. You need to get the very best out of them, and that's creativity, innovation, commitment. Turn them all into brand ambassadors for your project, your company, you know, things like this. And you can inspire teams, and it's amazing the ideas that can come out. You know, I once got a review. She took her team further than they thought they can go. When you're passionate about people, it's amazing how contagious that can be and how people start to believe. And it's the old adage, you know, the biggest journey starts with the single step. If you walk out today saying, I'm going to go through the branding thing, I'm going to get clarity, I'm going to see what value I bring to the market, and I'm going to work my damnedest with every single member of my team and push forwards. You know, won't solve the whole Spain things, but you know, if we're all trying in groups, it's certainly a positive, you know, step forwards.
But I'm gonna join you. I'm gonna join you in asking you, William, what do you think of how the Spanish brand is evolving and so on? Because we are all quite concerned about this, as you can see. So, what's the perception from the States?
No, and I have the perception from the other side. Here's the thing. I honestly think it's a blip. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for Spain. I think that Spain needs to think about what the Spanish brand really is and how it evolves from where it is to where it needs to be and make a plan. Most big, I was in Kuala Lumpur and I had dinner next to this guy who was branding Kuala Lumpur. They had hired him to do some of the branding. The Petronas Towers, by the way, are part of the branding of putting Kuala Lumpur on the map. So New York City has a team of 50-some people who work on the brand of New York City. It's that important, right? And so I think that there just needs to be some focus. What is our brand, and then how do we get from here to there? And the branding thing is what can get people excited. People who work at Apple are so excited about innovation. Every day they go to work because they love the idea of innovation.
Same
and they get
thing
to
with
innovate,
Apple's,
right? So if everyone in Spain knows exactly what this brand is about, and you know, there's all these Zara and all these huge success stories that we've heard. How do you take those great assets, right? Those things that have happened, and leverage them, right? I don't think it's evolution,
have to
not
leverage
revolution,
the corporate
right?
world.
Yeah.
Examples like Zara as well.
We'll go into the last question.
Well, my question is about the personal branding, and I would like to have your opinion about the issue of building a personal brand, making copycat of persons that you admire. For example, you think you have the same values of a person, you like the career, and say that person is very good in personal branding. Why not copying his ideas or his way of preparing the personal branding? I don't know if it's a good idea or not.
Yeah, it's only a good idea if you really do share so much of the same authenticity, right? If you because if you don't, then you're building your brand around something that isn't real, and you're not going to be able to sustain it. The other thing is, something that's unique is way more interesting. So if your brand is like a desirable brand, but it's not that desirable brand, it might be less interesting than if your brand was something completely different that is really who you are, right? So, but here's where I think your question's going that I really love is we can learn from others who, so there are people who don't do personal branding, which is what I built my brand around, but who do a lot of the stuff that I do, and I learn from them techniques that I can use and repurpose within my brand to help my brand be more successful. Different tools that they might use, or different ways that they might communicate, or different ways that they build their network. So I think that we can look to people that we respect, who we think we share things in common with, to learn their techniques, but then apply them again to our own unique promise of value, rather than try to copy theirs.
Thank you.
Bueno, pues queremos agradecer la asistencia a todos esta noche, agradecer a los ponentes que hayan venido y su participación, y os invitamos a un cóctel que tenemos aquí fuera en el hall de Aula Magna. Gracias.